Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's talk about NVIDIA stock. Let's talk about what has happened to the stock, what we can expect moving into what obviously will be a pretty massive week with NVIDIA earnings coming out on Wednesday. And yeah, I'll give you my thoughts moving forward. So as per usual, if you enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my analysis, I do have a membership section on YouTube where I share my thoughts every single day, mainly on Tesla stock and other stocks as well. Or for $5 a month, you get access to all of that I just mentioned. Plus, you also get access to NVIDIA daily updates as well every single day. But all that being said, jumping into it, NVIDIA closing the day down, unfortunately, 1.3%, which compared to the market is an underperformance. And we talked about how this is a bit of a concern after last trading days, the Friday. The price action obviously wasn't the best because we broke out of this sideways trading range, well below it, and of course we had some follow through today right into my band. And yeah, so what does this mean moving forward? Well, NVIDIA, of course, with the earnings coming out on Wednesday, that's going to be something to watch for. Now, we came right into my band and we bounced off of it to perfection almost, right? I did take that trade. I ended up obviously taking the win. Ended up selling at like 139.5, so I took a quick little W there, little day trade. Not too unhappy about that, because NVIDIA right now, I need to see better follow through, right? I'm not seeing the follow through I want to see, because we're essentially taking this range and we're turning it back into a potential resistance, right? This little area right here. I don't want to see this turn into a resistance, because as if that wasn't enough, we also have the 21 EMA you can see here also acting as a resistance. It acted as a support on Friday, but that wasn't enough. We gapped down below it. Now it's a resistance. So I need to see a little bit more follow through. And because we closed with a little bit of more weakness than I wanted to see, honestly, potentially a move down a little bit lower, maybe even tomorrow, honestly, back down to about 137 to as low as 135-ish. Is still in the cards. Unfortunately, that is still in the cards. That absolutely is still a possibility. And that's kind of what I still expect until we reclaim the low 140s and turn it back into support, essentially, in the 21 EMA, right? That's what I want to see, turn back into support. As long as that's not the case, I expect potentially more weakness on NVIDIA, especially considering the MACD is, of course, flipped down to the bearish side as well. Stochastic is showing a little bit of weakness and softening as well. So yeah, it's kind of, stuck between an immediate support and immediate resistance, to say the least. Now, that's going to be the main thing I'll be looking at moving forward as we head into earnings. Now, it's hard to say too much from this, because honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if NVIDIA kind of maybe even just goes sideways between this kind of 140, maybe even 137 area, right? And for the most part, it doesn't do too much, as well. We essentially await what obviously is going to be a pretty massive earnings, right? But the fact that we're showing this kind of weakness right here, I'm not a huge fan of. I definitely want to see this being reclaimed sooner than later for me to have a little bit more confidence in the stock right now, because as of right now, I just simply do not have too much confidence, personally speaking. It's also right in between my bands, you can see here, so it's not neither overbought nor oversold, which is neither really bullish or bearish. But the reason I also took the trade the morning, on top of course, it coming right into my daily band, is because you can see on the 1 hour, we opened up well into the red line of this 1 hour bands you can see right here, which again, doesn't usually happen very often. And when it does, that's usually an opportunity, which is pretty much the opportunity I took. Pretty much bought it near the bottom of the day. Actually, I was pretty happy about that purchase. And then we, of course, exited that at about, like I said, 139.5 roughly. So, it really just feels like it's going to come down to earnings, right? I mean, NVIDIA is, of course, the most bearish flow today. Almost 54 million in confirmed bearish flow on NVIDIA. Let's go over to the options flow very quickly here as well, and let's see what kind of looked like. I mean, the bears are still being dominated by the bulls as per usual, but you can see as I kind of zoom or scroll past it, there's a decent mix of red and green, right? It's not just bullish. It's not just constant bullish flow, despite 2.5 million call coming in there for, well into 2025, however, but a nice little 1 million call for December 20th coming in for NVIDIA for 140 strike. So the bulls are still dominating, in my opinion, at least from what I can see, but I need to see more confidence. I want to see at least maybe the BX trender start flipping back to green, at the very least the band to flip back to green. I want to see maybe the 21 EMA reclaimed, or I want to see NVIDIA get a much more of a stronger sell-off to where now I'm like, you know what, despite this being a little bit concerning, okay, but now I'm getting a discount, right? Now I'm getting a discount on the stock, and that's where I'd want to be buying, right? So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see what this has to do moving into earnings. It's very hard to determine it. But on top of this, also, don't forget, another reason why this buy was not too bad is because it came close to that green Fibonacci retracement at 786, or if you measure from here, it pretty much came exactly to the 618 Fibonacci retracement as well. So this area this morning, the low of the day, was pretty much a phenomenal place to buy. But because we didn't close with enough strength, in my opinion, at least based on this close right now, it's not completely unheard of for the potential not necessarily pain all the way down to continue, but maybe some sideways action, because again, I didn't see the strength that I wanted to see to maybe get NVIDIA, to push up, let's say back to about 145. Like I'm not seeing that strength that I wanted to see. So I expect some slight weakness to potentially some sideways action for NVIDIA, potentially tomorrow and Wednesday, as well as we head into, again, what could be one of the biggest earnings for the market, since NVIDIA is just such a massive player now. Now, another thing to note is the fact that SPY ended up closing above the 21 EMA, which is good, but it is also doing an inside day candle, right? You can see here. So pretty much watch for SPY to break above or below today's range as early as tomorrow. And that could be potentially giving us a direction as to where the market wants to go next in terms of up or down, quite simply put. And as if that wasn't enough, QQQ, a little bit weaker though. Tech looks a little bit weaker. You can see it closing below the 21 EMA, right? That's not what you want to be seeing. You want to see this reclaimed on the QQQ, which will be very good. But same idea. QQQ also pretty much printing an inside day candle. So above or below break on QQQ as early as tomorrow should signal what comes next, whether we continue making our way lower or maybe we can finally make our way higher. So watch for that moving forward. And of course, NVIDIA does follow the market pretty damn well, especially compared to something like Tesla. So this can impact and affect NVIDIA as well, especially if NVIDIA is potentially leading the charge to the downside like it kind of did today. So that's kind of the main thing I'm looking at right now for NVIDIA moving forward. I don't think there's too much more to update. Let's take a look at the 1 hour one more time. And the 1 hour potentially looking like a little bit of a bear flag, right? Nice little move to the downside. And now we're potentially setting up what could be a little bit of a bear flag that looks like this, go sideways, and then maybe make our way lower. So watch for that. That could potentially lead us well into the 135 or potentially lower. But again, the way I look at it also is, these bands, right? These bands are very powerful stuff. If NVIDIA ever comes down to about the 135-ish region, it would be extremely oversold on the 1 hour once again. And even the 4 hour will start entering very oversold territories where I will start getting very interested and might even buy into earnings, to be completely honest, because I feel like I'm getting a very nice discount. But if somehow, and I'm not saying this will happen, if somehow NVIDIA sells off well into the 132 to 130 range, then I'm getting a real damn discount, and then I'm getting very interested. Despite potentially triggering some bearish scenarios, I think that could be a nice little kind of scary, spooky, sell-off into earnings that should translate well, in my opinion, not financial advice, moving forward. But again, that's all those are ifs. I'm not saying those will happen or whatever, right? That's just kind of me thinking ahead as to what potentially may happen and how I may act on it. But yeah, I believe that's all I want to cover today. Don't think there's too much more to cover. We talked about options flow, how the bulls are still dominating the bears, even though despite black box showing that, the bears are, according to this, in terms of confirmed option flow, it is saying that, 53 million confirmed bearish flow for NVIDIA is still the case. So we'll see how that plays out. One more, I forgot to mention this one. This one's a little bit concerning, actually. I probably should mention this quickly. Remember how I mentioned last week how we closed the week with a inside week candle, where this week's price range last week was fully encapsulated by the week before that? Well, we actually went below. That's already a pretty bad sign. Like, I don't like to see that. That to me is a bit of a scary sign. Like, that could be something that's concerning for sure. So I don't like to see that whatsoever, which could mean that there is potentially a decent amount of more pain ahead. But it comes down to earnings. Ultimately, it ultimately just comes down to earnings regardless. But again, just closing below and going below last week's range like this that we pretty much did today is a bit eyebrow raising. I'm not going to lie, right? That is not something I want to see. And the BX on the weekly is actually also red. So some softening up is to be expected. And you can see all these indicators are very much softening up on the weekly. And this is getting very bearish. I'm not saying this will happen, but we are showing a very large, massive bearish divergence on the R side, despite us constantly making fresh higher highs on the weekly. So this is an extremely large bearish weekly divergence, which if this somehow plays out and if NVIDIA somehow actually does follow suit on this would be very bearish. Now I'm not saying it will, but if it does, this could be really bad, which also could be really bad for the market. So let's just see. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's not get too crazy. Let's not put on tinfoil hats here and assume the worst, when we don't need to. But just thought I'd mention that regardless. But all in all, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.